Making It Grow is brought to you in part by Santee Cooper, South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. More information on green power and energy conservation programs online at santeecooper.com. The South Carolina Department of Agriculture, reminding you that certified South Carolina agricultural products help make South Carolina grow. McLeod Farms in McBee, South Carolina. This family farm offers seasonal produce, including over 22 varieties of peaches. Glory Foods, celebrating Southern food with a soulful heritage. Glory Foods, a way of inviting South Carolina back to the dinner table. FTC Diversified, a proud part of your local communities, providing communication, entertainment, and security. Art Fields, a 10-day art competition in Lake City, South Carolina. Additional funding provided by International Paper.
Mother Nature is playing tricks on us. She's giving us some cooler weather and inviting us to go outside, but the blame mosquitoes are so bad, I can hardly walk out of the door at home. I hope things will settle down soon and I can get out there and catch up on some of those gardening chores. Thank you for joining us tonight for Making It Grow. We hope that we are happy that you are with us, and we hope that you will call us with your gardening questions. We're coming to you live from historic downtown Sumter, and we've got some people here ready to answer them. Of course, Teresa Lott is in the chat room, and she would love for you to join her. She'll explain how easy it is to do that. And then later in the show, you will enjoy visiting a beautiful natural resource with Teresa and learning about a place that you may want to take a visit to, Lynch's River. We also are happy that we will have Dr. John Nelson with us. Isn't that always fun with the Mystery Plant? And this is a special night for us because Jackie Moore, the South Carolina Specialty Foods Department under the South Carolina Department of Agriculture Department, joins us again. So let's go meet our guest and start answering your questions. Teresa Lott is a natural resources agent or water quality agent. All things that involve keeping our water clean and fresh. But we've had a good bit of rain lately, Teresa.
Good evening, Amanda. We did have a lot of rain at my house, about 10.5 inches over the course of a week. Really just 2 large storms. That was far exceeded the capacity that I can hold in my rain barrels. So we might not have been able to put that water to good use, but big rain events do lend themselves to going outside and checking to see if you have any erosion issues, any places where soil is washing away. Of course, you don't want that to happen because that's your valuable property. And also in terms of environmental health, we don't want that sediment to reach our streams where it can smother the tiny little things that live on the bottom, part of the base of the food chain. If you need help with erosion issues, call your local extension office and hopefully we can provide you with some good advice. If you'd like to talk about that or any gardening questions, feel free to join me in the chat room this evening. Big thanks to Jolie Brown for filling in last week while I was attending a conference up in Asheville. To join us, it's pretty simple. Go to the Making It Grow Facebook page. Use your favorite web browser, not the mobile application. Click on the green Let's Talk icon, which you should see on the left side of the page. Once you do, you'll be directed into the chat room. We've already got 9 speakers, 1 viewer. You'll click in the yellow box to join in the discussion, log in, and we should be chatting very soon. Amanda, back to you.
Thanks, Teresa, and we welcome Jonathan Croft, who's kind of my neighbor now because you're looking over row crops over in Orangeburg County.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think this rain is kind of playing havoc with some of your farmers.
It is right now. We're kind of at a standstill on digging peanuts, and we need to be in the field digging and combining peanuts right now. So.
But you can't put one of those heavy tractors in a wet field, can you?
No, ma'am. And the quality of the peanuts isn't holding up too well if they've been out in the ground very long in this cloudy, rainy weather. So.
Well, I hope the sun comes up and dries things up.
It was pretty good this afternoon. If it'll do that the next few days, we'll be in business.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And Paul Thompson joins us from York, where he's the horticulture agent up there. And I just think you have one of the nicest groups of master gardeners, and y'all have such a great facility. What's the name of that place where y'all have y'all's meetings, symposia?
Well, we meet at Glencairn Gardens for our monthly meeting,
which is
a
very
really
beautiful,
nice public park.
Yeah.
But the Joy of Gardening Symposium, which they have, it's this coming year, it's going to be the last Saturday in February. I think that's the 28th. I'm not quite positive on that. And it'll be at the Baxter Hood Center, which is part of York Tech. So easy to get to, right off the interstate, off of Dave Lyle Boulevard.
It is, and well worth the trip up there to your part of the world, because y'all put a great program on up there. And as soon as y'all get that information, do let us have it, and we'll share it with our viewers.
Right.
Okay. And we are so happy to welcome Jackie Moore. Jackie works with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, Specialty Foods, and Agritourism. And I think today she's really got somebody who's going to keep us on our toes.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, I have a Specialty Food Association member who also has a certified South Carolina product. I have Matt Patterson. He is with Iron Brew Coffee out of Blythewood. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us, Iron Brew Coffee, where did that name originate?
We got that name from the pride we take in our roaster. We roast all of our beans in a cast iron drum roaster as opposed to a stainless steel. And it's kind of like cooking in a cast iron skillet. It locks in those flavors. So as long as you're using high quality ingredients, you're going to lock in high quality flavors and contribute to future batches.
Well, we're looking forward to finding out about your beans and your different flavors of coffee, and we'll do that later in the program. Back to you, Amanda.
All righty, and now we're going to check in with our favorite professor at the University of South Carolina, and that would be none other than Dr. John Nelson himself. Dr. John?
Hello, Amanda. Hope you're having a good day.
I am having a lovely day, thank you, except for the mosquito bites that I'm still having to scratch on my ankle because I went out to pick beans in the garden, but I had beans in the garden, so I can't complain. John, you've got a really wonderful event coming up, and we've talked about it, but I want you to remind people of what y'all have planned at the university and whom we're going to learn about.
Okay, well, last week on the show, the assistant curator of the herbarium, Herrick Brown, was detailing the activity coming up on Saturday, a symposium honoring the life and science of Henry William Ravenel, who was a antebellum scientist and botanist. And this is going to take place on our campus in Columbia at Pearl College, starting at 9 a.m.
And this is at the Old Horseshoe. And what I do is I get a lot of quarters, and I can usually find street parking on Saturday. I'm on Senate or Pendleton, and just hop right over. And Curl, if I'm not mistaken, if I face the McKissick up front, if I'm on the Horseshoe facing the McKissick, I think it's right to the right, and pretty easy to find.
It is easy to find. It's sort of between McKissick and the observatory.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, John. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. And we have our first caller. Amy is calling us from Columbia. Hey, Amy, we're glad to talk to you tonight. How can we help you?
Well, I've had a problem with my azalea bushes this year. I don't have an irrigation system, so I use a sprinkler. But a lot of them have dead branches in the middle, and I've even had two that have looked like they've died all the way down. And I just am trying to figure out, should I cut out the dead branches? Should I dig up what looks like the dead bushes, or do I let them stay until next spring and hope for the best?
How long have they been growing at your place, Amy?
The two that look dead were planted last spring. The others have been there for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, and do you have some mulch on them?
Yes.
Okay.
I have pine straw.
Okay, all right. All right, Mr. Horticulturist, she's got some troubles with azaleas.
Right. Azaleas can be somewhat tricky to grow. They need water, but they also don't want to have wet feet. So you really, you think you're watering correctly, and if you're depending on overhead sprinklers, you really don't know what it's doing. So you really need to turn on a sprinkler for some amount of time and then go dig beside the plants that you're trying to water and actually see, am I wetting the soil adequately? Is it too wet? Am I turning on the sprinklers again and it's wet underneath? Now, being in Columbia, I can't imagine that's a problem usually in sandy soils in the Columbia area, but there are some clay areas up there. But that would be something I would look for is, did I water it enough or did I water it too much?
And
because both of them will.
And the best thing is to actually go and feel.
Right, go look to see.
And Jonathan, she said the ones that really look bad, she just put in last year. And, it takes several years, don't you think, for a plant to really get established?
It would take some time. If they've been completely died back and she can't find any green material at all, any living plant tissue, then those plants may need to be go ahead and take those out and start over before she invests a lot of time and money in them.
And anything that's dead, she can certainly take that out now, can't
Right.
she?
You might want to scratch the stems. If it was underwatering, you might have actually had some of the smaller diameter twigs actually have died.
Yes.
Otherwise, if the plant has just defoliated,
Okay.
you know, that's kind of a defense if it gets
Okay.
less.
So
less.
before she cuts, scratch if she sees green.
Yeah, scratch
Okay.
the bark.
But if there's no green, you can cut the dead out now.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And not exactly in Columbia, but not too far away, Doreen lives in Lexington, and we are happy you called us up tonight. How can we help you?
Oh, happy gardening, Amanda.
Thank you.
Hey, I have a lime patio tree. It's in a pot, and it's about 5.5, 6 feet tall.
Good.
And I have given it citrus fertilizer, real good, and it will never, ever bloom or, you know, produce any fruit.
Okay. And you bring it inside in the winter.
But I have been for about 4 years, but this last winter I said, you're going to make it on your own or you're gone.
Whoop.
And it survived.
It survived. Well, I've heard of stressing plants to try to get them to fruit, but I don't know if I do it with the lime tree. Paul, do you think?
Well, I guess my question would be how long it had been in that particular container. Maybe it's become root bound. There's just not enough soil volume there to actually hold on to a lot of nutrients. So if it's been in that container for a long time, she may want to look into repotting it.
How about the light intensity inside?
Needs to be in a highlight situation.
Okay.
You know,
get the
citrus are
fruits.
kind of,
They're from Florida, the Sunshine State.
they're difficult here. I would be more prone, I think, in the Lexington area to maybe go with one of the hardier citrus fruits. Some of the kumquats would actually survive, and there are some lemons. I don't know of any limes.
I think limes are the least
Probably,
cold hardy. Is that
yeah.
what you-
I would think so.
But in a perfect outdoor environment on a south-facing wall, it's going to do better if it's outside in the ground than it is in a
And the
container.
Satsuma orange is a good one to
Yeah,
start with.
Satsuma's a good
Everybody
one.
wants limes, but I think the Satsuma is probably the easiest one to go. Letha's calling us. We're so glad to hear from you tonight. And I didn't hear where you are, so tell me where you are.
I'm in Darlington, South Carolina. How are you, honey?
I'm fine. How are you? And Darlington sure is full of wonderful, fine people.
I know that right, because me and my little posse, we sit here every Tuesday, Karen Pratt and Carolyn Witherspoon, and we cannot wait to see what you can put on your head, because we love your hair.
Well, thank you so much. I hope I won't disappoint you tonight. But how can we help you with your garden today,
I have
Letha?
a question. I want to start, this is my first time growing a garden, and I want to start with the cool weather plants. Am I saying it correct? And I don't even know where to begin to make a garden.
All right. All right, Buster. You are one of my vegetable specialists, so let's help Letha get started with some cool weather plants.
Well, the first thing, getting started with a garden, if she's never gardened before, we need to get a soil sample, figure out where her soil pH is at, what kind of nutrients she has, so she can go right there to the office in Darlington and get that taken care of. Some of the easiest ones to grow: collards, turnips, kale, rutabagas if she likes them, and right on down the list in those cold crops.
Okay.
So,
And I think that kale, that curly leaf kale, might be the easiest because it's so cold hardy, isn't it?
that and curly leaf mustard or flat leaf mustard,
okay.
those are, and you can cut those and they'll come
Oh, they'll
back.
come like that, yeah.
Yeah, if she cuts them off an inch or two high, they'll come back. So.
Well, Letha, we hope you have lots of good eating right out of your own garden, and you get in touch with those people in the Florence County office and get that soil test taken. Right now, we're going to see if Teresa is getting people to take advice in the chat room. Teresa?
Thanks, Amanda. Well, we have about 15 people that are participating in the chat room discussion this evening, including a celebrity. We have Chief Meteorologist Frank Johnson from WBTW, who's asked a question about crepe myrtles and saying the growth is sort of leggy this year. Some of the leaves are turning yellow and not much flowering. And of course, it's often hard to say exactly what's going on without seeing photos, without being able to go up and actually observe what might be going on. Some problems with plants plants this year seem to be weather related, some cold damage that might have occurred. Pruning, our pruning habits can sometimes cause leggy growth that we don't see as attractive. Yellowing leaves and hindered flowering could also be a heavy aphid infestation. So definitely have to know more about what's going on. Be really careful observers. We do have a great fact sheet on crepe myrtles, so if you're having problems in your yard, you can look for that. It's on the Home and Garden Information Center, clemson.edu/HGIC, and you can just search for crepe myrtle problems, and it will give you lots of different things to look for, including diseases and insect pests. And of course, tons of other fact sheets on there that can help you. Still got plenty of time if you'd like to join in the discussion. Just log in through our Facebook page. Amanda, back to you.
I'd like to take a minute to give special thanks to you for that wonderful work and research y'all did on crepe myrtles. You can find out which ones are resistant to certain things. You did that wonderful study that is still capable of being found, I think,
Yeah,
at
it's on
HGIC.
the Department of Horticulture website, but it's just simply clemson.edu/crepe myrtle. And so we were focusing on kind of right plant, right place, getting people to select the right varieties
The
to
right
start
size
with.
to plant in front of the window, and one that has resistance and the right color.
Yeah, I've got a Tonto in my yard, which is planted the same time as like everybody else in the neighborhood. And my Tontos, I'm still taller than they are. And they have not been pruned other than the shake versus, ones that are 30 feet tall in the neighbor's yard. So if you choose the right varieties for the places that you want them, then you don't have to do all that butchery.
Okay. We're going to find out now if we've got some people here who really have a depth of knowledge, because Dr. John has one of his mysterious plants for us. Y'all ready? Okay. Dr. John, bring it on.
Okay, well, this will be a pretty easy one. In fact, I know it will be.
All right.
But it's time for an easy one, and it's an aquatic plant. And it turns out that in our backyard we have a water feature. It's basically a big flower pot filled up with water and a bunch of aquatic plants. And one day after one of my field trips, I brought back some of this stuff and just put it in there, and it really took off. And it is one of several species of aquatic plants that we find floating. It's a completely floating plant, and you'll find it with all the other assortment of aquatic plants in such a habitat. But I know you already know what it is, but this plant is one of the tiniest plants in the world. And the other day, I know we had an elephant here that had one of the biggest leaves in the world. Well, this is one of the smallest leaves in the world. And these are aquatic, and there really is no distinct leaf or stem, but there's this floating little flat thing. And a number of roots will come out of each one of these. We call each one a frond. And about 5 or 6 little roots will grow out of the bottom of each frond. Now, this is a flowering plant. It's just the most crazy thing that this plant can produce.
It's going to have a flower?
Very, very tiny flowers.
My word.
And this particular species doesn't often make its flowers. And I'll tell you what, you really need a hand lens or a microscope to see them. So, and there are none to see in this assortment right here. But it is such an interesting group of plants. And this particular one, as I said, there are a number of relatives that it's got. But this one is actually, technically, it's not a native species. It was grown for a long time as an aquarium plant. And it got loose, of course, probably in Florida. And now it's all over pretty much the eastern and the western ends of the United States. And a lot of people get all upset because it's in their ponds, and it can be a problem if it, makes a very dense mat.
Okay.
And I know you know what it is.
Well, who wants to name this one?
I would say it's duckweed.
Quack, quack, quack. Looks like a duck.
Looks like
Walks like a duck. Yeah, I think that we
there we
could
go.
do.
Good hand.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's too much fun. Oh.
So this is one of the duckweeds, and this is Spirodela, or actually we probably should call it Landoltia, but don't worry about that.
I'm not going to worry for a minute.
Okay.
Well, John, that was fun, and especially to think that it flowers. How remarkable that that even something that tiny will flower and I guess make a seed, but probably mostly spread, I would think, by people or animals or moving boats and things like that.
Right, and you know that our DNR wants people to be very careful about washing off their boats when they're going from one waterway to another, just for this reason, that
Yes.
they can keep from spreading aquatic plants, and certainly any ones of them that are invasive.
Yes, and we know that Santee Cooper and other companies spend a lot of money fighting these invasive plants. So thank you for that tip, and we will look forward to seeing.
That's right, Amanda. Can I just say one last thing? This
Certainly.
is sort of a bulletin.
Yes.
You know, the other night, I invited people to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope so that they can get some seeds of the lightning rod plant.
Yes, you did.
Well, I've got like a barrel full of letters now, and I don't send me any more because I'm going to run out of seeds.
Okay. So if you weren't real quick, it's too late now, but maybe next year. Well, thank you, John, and we'll look forward to seeing you this weekend.
All right then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Dot is calling us, and she is right here in Sumter, South Carolina, the Gamecock City. Dot, we're glad you called us up tonight. And what can we do to help you?
Thank you so much, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I have a major problem I hope you can help us with. We have an infestation of crickets. What the mole crickets we have, and the house cricket, and then a little grayish green one. And they have invaded our yard and now trying to take over the house.
My
I
word.
put down 100 pounds of Towel Star on a city lot about 6 weeks ago. So give me some advice.
Well, you are kind of hewing over there, Paul. What do you think?
I'm not sure what the rate of Towel Star
But you
is,
think
but
that may
that
have
sounds
been
like a little bit overdoing it.
We don't know how large her yard is, but
Yeah.
still, yeah.
But, you know, I don't.
Crickets are worse, I think, in the fall. I have more trouble
Well, the
with
mole
them this-
crickets, you know, the nymphs that came from the eggs earlier in the summer.
Yes.
You know, they're really actively feeding this time of the year. They're, you know,
What
probably.
advice would you have for Dot?
Well, you know, I mean, Towel Star should work just fine.
The only reason it might not work is if she didn't get it watered in right after application, because on that product it needs to be watered in to get activity against those ground burrowing insects.
And again, Dot, I don't know that that's what happened. If you want to call the office tomorrow, we'll try to give you we'll try to talk about it some more, but it just reminds people that you have to read the label. A lot of times, especially with things like that, or even pre-emergent herbicides, if we don't activate them by watering them, and it doesn't mean just a rainstorm. Usually there's a certain amount of water, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan,
It's a
that's
certain
required.
amount.
So that's why it is of tantamount importance to read the label completely before you start, and we hope that we can maybe talk to you tomorrow and help you get some handle on this. Jim is calling us from Charleston, South Carolina. Jim, we're sure glad to talk to you tonight. How can we help you?
I've got 4 boxwoods in planter pots on a sunny front porch.
Yes.
And I've had them there for about a year. Basically, at least during the summer, water them every day because they're in the heat of the sun. And they've done beautifully up in here until about the first week of August, and then they started getting some of them. I had 4 of them. I've got one that's still perfect, and then in degrees, the other ones have kind of turned brown on me, or at least part of them have turned brown. And the same amount of water basically every day. The same environment. Go from beautiful to brown in a few weeks here. What's happening to me?
Okay. Paul, do you have any ideas about what might be happening with these?
Well, I'm assuming there's drainage in the pot.
We certainly hope so.
But that's certainly a necessary need.
And sometimes
there,
needs to be checked, because sometimes we find that things get clogged.
Yeah. But the other thing is, and just recently, I think Meg at the Plant Problem Clinic sent out a kind of a bulletin about some boxwood blight that's around. So that may be something to check for, and that would involve taking a sample where you have something dead still attached to something green. So we kind of want, dead, declining in, living tissue within one sample. So put that in a plastic bag, take it to the county office.
And also, I think it just got, to me this year, August got a lot hotter. And it could be that, I've heard of people who had to water more than once a day.
Right,
And,
that's
if it just gets exceptionally hot again, there's just nothing better than putting your finger in the ground to find out what's going on. Same amount of water. Well, a difference in 10 degrees of heat can make a difference in how much water is necessary. Danny's calling us from Johnson. We're glad to talk to you, Danny, and we wonder what's going on in your yard that we can help you with.
Hey, Amanda, happy gardening to you.
And the same to you.
I wanted to thank you for encouraging me not to cut down my palm tree. Back when it was earlier part of the year, I called you and told you about my palm tree that it looked completely dead. And you said, well, just leave it alone and see what it would do. I cut back all of the branches on it that looked like it was dead. And thank the Lord, it came back out beautiful.
Woo!
I bought that tree in Springfield at the flea market and really just hated to think that it might be dead. But anyway, what I'm calling for tonight is I can't get a dogwood tree to grow in my front yard for anything. I had one last year I bought in around, I think it must have been September of last year, and planted it. And it grew fine. It made it all the way through the harsh winter, and it bloomed, and it did great. And even during the summertime, kind of stressful, but the leaves started dying back on it, and it's just about dead. And I wonder why am I having such a bad problem with it? I haven't scratched the bark on the bottom of anything. I've been real careful about it.
What is it getting a lot of sun, or is it in part shade?
It's getting, I think, just about the right amount of sun. It's not in a full sun area, and it's not in a full shade area. It's partial.
Okay, all right. Jonathan, dogwoods don't like to be deeply planted. So tell me what happens sometimes if people don't look for that, what do you call it, that root flare?
The actual flare of the trunk. If you get them too deep, then you're basically suffocating the root system and suffocating the tree. If that tree was planted this past September, I kind of wonder if maybe the root ball may not have been broken up. The tree made it through the spring part of the year fine, and then as we got into the heat and stress of the summer, it didn't have adequate root system to deal with that, especially if his irrigation practices, if he wasn't watering that tree enough
extra from the grass
to keep it going during that stressful time. It could just be from that.
And Paul, a lot of people still tell me, oh, I dug the best hole you've ever seen. You'd be so proud of me. And tell me your ideas about digging a big, deep hole.
Wide and shallow. Wide and shallow. No deeper than what you need for that tree to be sitting either level with or slightly higher than the surrounding soil.
Okay.
And 5 times as wide as the current root ball is, optimum.
Ideal.
But at a minimum of twice.
Okay. So don't pull out a lot of soil and let that plant end up settling down.
End up settling and being deep. And, and as Jonathan said, when you take that plant out of the pot, you really, I basically beat the thing on the ground and get rid of all the potting soil in that root ball.
Whoa.
Because you don't want that change of soil.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Texture of what's in the container, which is really well-drained stuff, and then this fine textured stuff around it.
So you think so you like to wait until the trees are really dormant before you plant them. You would think like November, December rather than September.
Well, that's always the best time of the year to establish things.
All right. Well, maybe we hope next year that you can work it out so that you can get that dogwood established so that you will have one. It's a beautiful native tree, and it's always fun to see the birds, and they're eating the berries when there's not much out there in the landscape. Well, right now I'm not going to eat something, but I'm going to go over there and smell something wonderful. I'm going to visit with our side counter, and while I make my way to the coffee bar, I'm going to check on Teresa and find out about the chat room. Teresa?
Thanks, Amanda. Well, I've been lamenting a little about my problem with root knot nematodes in the garden, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll share a few very bright faces from Amanda's recent trip to the Low Country Master Gardener Association with Laura Lee Rose, and she got to go to their Lunch and Learn series. Here you can see a group of them, and you'll notice as we go through that there's one common characteristic. They are all sporting hats. And, I think some of them might give Amanda a run for her money. We had some creativity, and it didn't matter, man, woman, they all sported hats, as you can see. I hear it was a wonderful event, and I encourage anyone in the Beaufort area to visit the Port Royal Farmers Market for the Low Country Master Gardeners Lunch and Learn series. Now let's check in with Amanda and her guests at the side counter.
It was a wonderful day, and boy, do they have some wonderful South Carolina products at that farmer's market. But we're going to talk about something other than the Port Royal Farmers Market. We're always so happy when Jackie Moore with the South Carolina Specialty Foods Division joins us, and you have a guest who we are really tickled to welcome to the show.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Amanda. Yes, we have Matt Patterson. He is with Iron Brew Coffee out of Blythewood. Thank you for coming and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm curious how somebody from Blythewood even knew about importing coffee from Brazil, South America. What a story.
Yeah, we actually got into it through one of my dad's business partners and a family friend. He was from Brazil, and he was part owner of several coffee farms down there, and turned us on to it.
Well, you've got some pictures, I think, that we're going to look at, and they really are quite beautiful and will help us understand a little bit about the process. So what are we looking at here?
This is one of the coffee farms where we source our beans.
Okay.
And you can see just the rows of coffee trees right there.
Beautiful, green. And what comes next?
Well, this is the white flower.
Oh my goodness,
so whenever
it's beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. Once the coffee starts to bloom and everything, you got the flower first, and then eventually that'll turn into one of the coffee cherries.
So the fruits are called cherries?
Yes, ma'am. They start off green, and as they ripen, they progress to a yellow color, and then on to red, which is when they're ready to be harvested.
And you said they're hand-picked?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
And then I think that they are dried in the field, and that's what we're seeing here.
Yes, ma'am. They just lay them out in those troughs like that, and basically they're just sun-dried. Eventually the cherry fruit will fall away, and all you have left is the coffee beans in the middle.
Okay. And then, Jackie, I think you were talking earlier about something that was interesting.
Yeah, they say direct trade instead of fair trade. What does that mean?
Direct trade means we buy the coffee directly from the farmers. We know them personally, so basically we cut out the middleman. The coffee farmers get paid better, and they get us a better bean in return.
And that's
so we can control the quality.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you talked about cast iron roaster, and this fellow looks pretty happy with the setup.
Yes, ma'am. That's our roast master, John Epperly, and you can see the cast iron drum roaster in the background. And by using that, you lock in the high quality flavors. All we use is 100% Arabica beans every time, so that contributes to the richness of future batches.
All right, and I think the last thing we're going to see is the
beautiful
final
beans.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Jackie, you and Matt, tell us about what we're looking at up here,
right up
please.
here, you have the ones as they come to you from Brazil, right?
Yes, that's
correct. They're that light
the green
pea
beans.
Pea color.
Absolutely. They all start off like that.
And then you have 4 different darknesses, I guess you could call them.
Yeah,
What do you call them?
different roast levels.
Okay, and tell us about those.
And basically, it's just the same bean roasted at different temperatures for different amount of times to give you the different flavor profiles. So we got a breakfast roast, the first one. The next one is our medium roast, our Carolina Classic.
And you said the longer you roast it, the less caffeine.
Yes, ma'am. When you get into like the darker roast, you got a lot less caffeine than the breakfast roast.
And so that's probably in the breakfast time you need an eye opener, so you have to have
That's right. Jumpstart the day.
So the Carolina Classic, is probably the most popular and the one that would be the best maybe for morning.
Yes, well, the breakfast roast is probably a good one for morning also because it'll have more caffeine in
That's
it.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah. The Carolina Classic is our medium, but it's still our most popular.
And you also have flavors, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How many flavors do you have?
We have 11 different flavor varieties.
And I know last weekend at the Buyer's Market, there's one that was very popular because everyone kept coming out and saying, you've got to try this coffee. And what was that?
That was the sticky bun.
That's the sticky bun.
Yeah, sticky bun and Southern Pecan are our most popular flavors.
How do you make the flavored coffees if you're using the same bean?
Yeah, basically we use our breakfast roast. That way the darker roast doesn't overpower the flavor. but we put it in a tumbler with some flavor syrups and let it tumble for 4 hours.
For 4 hours?
Yes,
my
ma'am.
Lord.
You got to get that flavor to really soak in that bean.
Okay.
And what are some of your popular flavors? Everybody likes flavored. What are some of your favorites?
For the holidays, we have pumpkin pie and winter mint. Those are both really popular during the wintertime, obviously.
And then you have one that makes me think of chocolate. Mint chocolate?
Oh, Thin Mints.
Thin Mints.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's got chocolate and the mint flavor
And the
to
mint,
it.
it's got it all. So you got your caffeine from the chocolate and from the coffee. Right?
Absolutely. Get you going.
That's great.
Well, it really sounds like a superior quality product that a lot of care goes in sourcing it and then in the way that you process it once you get it here. And I think people are going to want to know more about it. And so at the end of the show, Jackie, we're going to get you to fill us in on everybody's contact information.
That's right. We'll do that.
And Jackie, I think this is kind of a special day for us and for you.
Well, it is. This is my 60th show. So I want to thank you for all the 60 companies that you have helped get their products known around South Carolina.
Well,
so we appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate having you on, and you really introduced us to some pretty special people.
Really good people,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank
All righty.
you.
And now we're going to check back to Teresa and hear about those chatters. Teresa?
That was a fascinating segment, as always. But now, how about something different? A little game of I Spy. So a photo should pop up on your screen, and I want you to see if you can identify the insect that is there. So we'll circle it. I know the picture's not super large on your television screen, but this is our state insect, probably. Vicki Bertinelli said it's likely the Carolina mantid, and they range in color from green, which you might think is the typical praying mantis, to a brownish or even a gray, and they can have speckles or not. This is a beautiful illustration of camouflage. Very hard to pick out the insect on that tree bark. And you know, I am one for sharing what I call fascinating facts or tidbits, sometimes worthless information, maybe, but very interesting at that. The females of this species are known to reward their mates after mating by biting the heads off the males and consuming some of them. You know, not too big of a deal because the males would have died before the winter, and that extra protein that she takes in helps her to produce healthy eggs to develop into the next generation. So good guys to have in your garden, right? Beneficial insects because they're predators, but I know I am glad I am not a mantid. Let's check in with Amanda and the panel.
Thank you, Teresa. It's fun, those little tidbits you give us. I'm glad, too, that I'm not a mantid. I would not want to have my head eaten, nor would I want to eat a bug's head. Either sex sounds like it would be kind of a bad deal. Jill's calling us from Myrtle Beach. Jill, thank you for calling us. Yes. No.
What were you saying? A foreign language. I swear.
I was talking
about. I wanted to know about when you prune hydrangeas.
Well.
And how much?
Okay. And these are your my pet hydrangeas, the big blue and pink ones that you get early in the season?
Yes,
okay.
I have, a whole yard of them. They keep changing colors. And then when you do the dwarf gardenias, which are not dwarfs, they just grow like, they're huge.
Well, aren't you lucky that, because half of mine decided to die. I guess you've got beautiful drainage down there in Myrtle Beach. Well, let's see if Paul, who's a horticulturist, can help you with this question about the hydrangeas.
What I typically do with those hydrangeas, if you wait until wintertime and nothing's on the plant, so you have no leaves interfering, and you're looking down at all those stalks coming up out of the ground, after a while, some of those become old and less productive.
Yes.
So they don't produce the real big buds and the real big flowers.
Okay.
So you just periodically go in there and thin out that older wood, but you're leaving a lot of these younger canes that have come up. They usually have very obvious fat buds all up and down the stem and a terminal bud at the end. And you leave those alone. Now the other option is you can prune immediately after flowering, but then of course,
it's hard to
enjoy.
See.
You don't enjoy the flower as much because it's ornamental even after it begins to fade.
I think so too.
But they're best not just kind of shaped and all pruned back evenly like that, but going in there and just thinning out some of the older, unproductive, real gnarly looking canes, and leaving some of those younger, fresh ones that are typically not going to be as large anyway, so you're reducing the height as well.
With the dwarf gardenias, it sounds like hers are kind of are on steroids.
It sounds like it. Sounds like she's got some really good soil where
I know
she's
that.
at.
Yeah. And they're kind of overgrowing the space. So what advice would you give her, Jonathan?
I'm gonna have to refer to Paul on that one.
Okay.
Gardenias are out of my area.
Shoot, I know that you know about gardenias too. You just being nice. Paul, what would you say?
Well, we consider gardenias to bloom on new growth. So late winter, prior to spring growth, is usually the best time to do any kind of heavy pruning.
Okay.
But don't go too far into the spring on pruning, or you're going to really delay your flowers.
Okay. And they do have a beautiful little flower. And they kind of have a longer,
very fragrant.
Yeah, a longer blooming time than some of the big ones. Well, one thing that is always nice is to get out into nature, and we are going to enjoy a trip to Lynch's River with Teresa and do a little sightseeing from an unusual elevation.
In the small town of Coward, South Carolina, you'll find a place near and dear to my heart, one of the state's recreational gems, Lynch's River County Park. With me today is one of the park's dedicated employees, Shelby McCormick. Shelby, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to explore the park today.
Thank you all for coming.
The park certainly has a lot to offer, ways to immerse people in nature. What can visitors experience here?
Well, this is a 676-acre park. It covers the nature walks and a whole array of nature activities.
Very good. I understand even everything from camping, cabins, a splash pad for kids, so there really is something for everyone.
It sure is.
Certainly one of the highlights of the park is the building we are standing in now, the Environmental Discovery Center. And just outside, as people walk in, they'll notice a beautiful habitat garden. Tell me a little bit about the purpose behind that.
Well, the butterfly garden we have as they come in, of course, is laid out to have the host plants as well as the nectar plants for the adults.
And that is so important. People really enjoy seeing butterflies in the yard, but don't always realize we need plants that will host the larval stage, which is the caterpillars.
Absolutely, and it's fun to see the butterfly cycle in all stages in that garden.
And you might get a glimpse of some other wildlife, maybe some dragonflies, and I know we saw some hummingbirds that were enjoying the nectar from those flowers as well. Shelby, I understand that the Environmental Discovery Center features some green architecture and green construction practices. A very interesting history involved. Tell me about that.
Well, it is a LEED certified building, which means it has a low impact, designed to have a low impact in the environment, which we're very proud of.
And the lumber came from local places?
Mostly tobacco barns. Old tobacco barns was sitting and just waiting to be reused. And so we reused them here.
That is very neat because that, of course, was a very important industry really here in this part of South Carolina. I even noticed that you have a special parking space dedicated for
the hybrid vehicles.
Very good. So encouraging people to be conservationists and energy efficient. And when we come into the Environmental Discovery Center, there are certainly many things that people can become involved with and learn about in terms of nature and how we can be good stewards. The most exciting part might be the animals.
It is definitely, for the kids, it is the most exciting part.
And some of your animals are?
Well, we have an alligator, small as it is, snakes, turtles.
Very good. So reptiles, amphibians, and I think you may even have some smaller animals that people are getting more and more excited about these days.
We do have an observational beehive that's made out of plexiglass, so people can come and view honeybees at work in their natural, well, somewhat natural environment.
People would probably be surprised to know that honeybees are not native, but certainly we rely on them, don't we?
We do. For all of our agriculture crops, it's important to have the bees.
A few of the other things that you might find here in the Environmental Discovery Center are an assortment of hands-on activities for kids to really get in tune with what's in the natural world. For example, you have a collection of skulls.
We do, and you can see them here, and we have other skulls and other fossils in other cases. Of course, we have furs they can examine.
And even a micro eye, and that gives people an up-close view of things?
It does, and That's a big attraction to kids also, for them to put things underneath the mica so they can get a good view of it.
Just outside the Environmental Discovery Center, you will find probably one of the most unique features of the park and perhaps even the state of South Carolina.
We do have what we call a canopy walk out behind, goes out from the back of the EDC. It goes up into the treetop, so you get like a bird's eye view or a squirrel's view. At the outer end of it, it's probably about 50 feet off the ground, so it's a nice place to visit, different times, different seasons.
What a different experience to really be able to see the trees at that level and to look down on the forest floor below and get a view of those cypress knees too.
It is very, it's just a good place to go out and relax and really take in the nature part of the park.
Do you ever find any visitors hesitant to step foot out on that wobbly bridge?
Usually only adults.
It's interesting how the kids are a little more adventurous. Well, Shelby, it certainly has been my pleasure exploring the park with you today. Lynches River County Park certainly has a lot to offer. For those interested, where can they learn more?
They can go to lynchesriverpark.com. They can also find us on Facebook, Environmental Discovery Center on Facebook. And we do have brochures that can be picked up here at the park.
Very good. I think we'd all agree that Lynches River County Park exemplifies South Carolina's state slogan, smiling faces, beautiful places.
Gosh, Teresa, that was just fascinating, and I'd really like to make a trip over there. You certainly have piqued my curiosity. And what a tremendous variety of things to learn about when you get there.
Well, I would be happy to give you a tour, so just let me know when you're in the area. Lynches River County Park is very special to me, as I mentioned in the segment. That is what brought me to the PD region of South Carolina. I had the privilege of working there before I came to work for Extension, and still take advantage of every opportunity I can to get out there and just be one with nature. You know, Amanda, that is an interesting hat that you have. I think everyone wants to know what they might find on that lovely headdress you're wearing.
Well, the main thing I wanted people to know about was my antenna, or antennae, whatever you call them. I'm afraid, I don't know if I'm supposed to have 3 or 4, but I have 3 tonight. But this is actually a type of goldenrod, and people fuss about goldenrod because they think it makes them sneeze. But goldenrod has a nice heavy pollen. If you remember, Laura Lee Rose showed us a picture of a bee who just had his little baskets full of pollen. And so I think it's something else that really should take the blame for sneezing, isn't it?
Probably ragweed.
That old ragweed, yeah. But anyway, I love this time of year. It seems like the fall has all those wonderful colors that start coming in. And it was fun to go in the garden this morning. Marcia is calling us from Seabrook Island. Marcia, how are things down on the coast?
Oh, things down on the coast are beautiful.
Well, I'm delighted, but what is not so beautiful that we might be able to help you with?
Well, it's 2 questions about houseplants.
All right.
2 weeks ago, I had the most gorgeous peace lily with great big gorgeous green leaves and white blooms. Within 48 hours, the blooms turned brown, the leaves turned down, facing towards the dirt. I took the plant out. I thought maybe it had too much water in it. I dried out the roots. I replanted it, and not one single thing has happened.
Okay. Well, Paul.
Well, I wonder what those roots look like.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, replanting can't work a miracle if the roots are dead, can it?
No. And I would suspect, it seems like we've been on water a lot tonight, but probably the main way most people do in houseplants is by overwatering them. And they give you the same symptoms as underwatering, and that's wilting. But the roots have to have oxygen in the soil to actually take up water, so it's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. So it may or may not recover some as new roots regenerate, and so she can kind of wait if she wants to.
And plus smell would be a factor there, I would think.
Yeah.
If
Rotted roots do smell kind of rotten, don't they?
If you have a decomposing plant,
be it in the field
smell,
or in the house.
It's all going to be about the same.
Okay. Well, you've got an interesting plant over there that you said is a native.
Yeah, this is a great native. It's called mountain mint, and there's basically several different
And
species.
you let us smell it. It just smells wonderful.
Really odd flowers. They have these clusters of flowers at the nodes, and this kind of real cushiony looking flowering head. Most of the flowering is already finished. You see a few little petals that are tiny little flowers that are still hanging on. But really interesting as far as the kind of colors, of giving you some silvery colors. But what I really like about this is it attracts a lot of the beneficial wasps. So the beneficial solitary wasps, not the ones that make the paper nest on the eave of the house.
Not the ones that are going to sting you and make you
right.
unhappy.
Those kind of wasps are social wasps. They're stinging you if you're going after their nest.
Okay.
They're protecting their nest. So solitary wasps, they're just too busy to worry about you.
And who's sitting up there?
Well, right up top here was just something that I saw after I had harvested the mountain mint, and it's a ambush bug.
Uh-huh.
And you don't often see ambush bugs. I see plenty of assassin bugs around all the time because
Yes.
they're always moving and looking for food. But these guys sit on a flower typically, waiting for some prey that's going to be a little smaller than they are, that it can grab. And it's got kind of enlarged
And I
front
think we've
legs.
got a picture, a larger
It's got
picture of
enlarged
it.
front
Yeah.
legs, and it kind of grasps the prey somewhat like a praying mantis does with its front legs. And then it's got a piercing mouth part that it just then sticks in like a dagger and sucks up
all those juices.
the innards of the other insect. So
Well, that is fun. That is fun. Thank you for your good eyesight and for seeing that. We have so many things to be proud of with our association with Clemson, and the Your Day program that comes on at noon, Monday through Thursday. On September the 18th, Thursday, a gardening hour. Lisa Wagner from the South Carolina Botanical Garden will share tips and information with you. And then on Monday, September the 22nd, Bob Polumsky is going to visit the herbarium at Clemson. You know, we always are talking about the A.C. Moore Herbarium, but we have the J.C. Ralston Herbarium, something that we are so equally proud of. So don't forget about the Your Day program. You will enjoy that. Jackie, I want to thank you so much for being with us, and I want you to please tell us how to find out more about your programs and about how to get a really good cup of coffee.
Well, thank you, Amanda. It has been a pleasure to be here. And this is Flower Festival season at the Department of Agriculture, and it starts this weekend. Friday and Saturday, we will be in Greenville State Farmers Market for Autumn Fest. It'll run Friday and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The next weekend, which is September 26th, 27th, and 28th, we'll be at the State Farmers Market in West Columbia for Midlands Plant and Flower Festival. Then the next weekend, which is the first weekend in October, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you can go out to the PD State Farmers Market for their Fall Festival. And as you know, I'm now very active in agritourism in South Carolina. We've been trying to locate the farms, and if you want to find out where agritourism farms are in South Carolina, please visit our brand new Facebook page, which is facebook.com/SC Agritourism, and like our page, and we will keep you posted on all the new and exciting agritourism sites. You can also find out about South Carolina Specialty Food Association from their Facebook page or their website, www.scsfa.org. You can visit the webs and you can find out all about our 160 members, and one of them that was here tonight was Matt Patterson from Iron Brew Coffee. And Matt, how can people find out more about your company?
You can find us at ironbrewcoffee.com. We have a Look For Us Here page that shows the different retailers that we partnered with, and we're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
thank
tonight.
you very much.
Thank you, Amanda.
And Therese, we want to thank you for your wonderful job over there and for such a fun trip to one of South Carolina's great parks.
It was a wonderful opportunity being able to visit, to tape that segment, to highlight Lynch's River County Park, and of course, great to be back in the seat here today in the studio. I look forward to seeing all of your posts on Facebook this week. Amanda?
Thank you. I would like to take a minute to say that my fellow county agents, three of whom tonight, gave me a very, very nice award, and Jonathan, who was the president of the South Carolina Association of County Agricultural Agents during that time. I wanted to thank you, Jonathan, for the very beautiful box that y'all gave me. I am really honored.
You're welcome, Amanda. It was a well-deserved award.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all y'all. Thank you for your good leadership. I do want to say, Paul, that we want to thank you for making the trip down. And does this Glencairn Gardens have anything going on this time of year? Is it a good time to visit?
There's some fall flowers and that type thing. Of course, you know, that garden's really geared up for the spring. That was a traditional azalea camellia garden.
But after being inside in the hot summer, I bet a walk there with all the water and all would be nice.
Yeah, a lot
it?
of ornamental grass is beginning to flower now and stuff.
Okay,
So, yeah.
well, thank you. And Jonathan, we hope you can get those peanuts out of the ground. I'm worried about you.
I feel like we'll probably start back at it again tomorrow.
Okay, I'm hoping when I ride to work, I'll see them up. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and I want to hope that you will be with us next week for another hour of gardening and information.
Making It Grow is brought to you in part by Santee Cooper, South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. More information on green power and energy conservation programs online at santeecooper.com. The South Carolina Department of Agriculture, reminding you that certified South Carolina agricultural products help make South Carolina grow. McLeod Farms in McBee, South Carolina. This family farm offers seasonal produce, including over 22 varieties of peaches. Glory Foods, celebrating Southern food with a soulful heritage. Glory Foods, a way of inviting South Carolina back to the dinner table. FTC Diversified, a proud part of your local communities, providing communication, entertainment, and security. Art Fields, a 10-day art competition in Lake City, South Carolina. Additional funding provided by International Paper.